So before we head on to the life cycle and life stages of the Skullcrawlers, let's take a quick look at their origins and traits. These freaky, slithering nightmares were seen first in 2017's Kong Skull Island, and made a return in Godzilla vs. Kong, and then in the games like Kong Skull Island, Cinematic Adventure, Titan Chasers, and even the animated series and other works. Their origins are murky, but the Godzilla vs. Kong novelization gives us a wild clue. They might have evolved from an ancient lineage of reptiliomorphs. This means that they weren't really true reptiles, but of a lineage that shares a common ancestral point. Then in the Kong Skull Island Cinematic Adventure game, the MonsterVerse adds another piece to the puzzle, classifying them under the group of Salamandra, which means they're closer to amphibians than reptiles. But from a zoological point of view, Salamandra still falls under the larger umbrella term of Reptiliomorpha, which is actually a clade that encompasses a wide range of tetrapods, from amphibians to reptiles and even mammals. What makes them so terrifying isn't just their design, but the way they function. Skullcrawlers are hypervores, meaning their metabolism is so jacked up that they basically live in a constant state of hunger. They have to keep eating or they die. Their physiology is tailor-made for relentless predation. Just look at that massive gaping mouth that unhinges to swallow prey whole. Plus their long prehensile tongues work almost like a third limb, whipping out to ensnare victims before dragging them in for the kill. They can track warm-blooded creatures over huge distances, almost like sharks sensing blood in the water. And their skeletal appearance, well, it's not just for show. The empty-looking eye sockets in their skull-like heads aren't their real eyes. Those hollow parts might act as heat-sensitive pits, like those found in snakes, helping them detect prey in the dark. As for size-wise, we've seen Skullcrawlers range from human size to full-blown kaiju tier monsters, like the big one Kong fought in Skull Island and number 10. So now that we have been caught up, let's start looking at the life cycle. Let's begin with stage 1, the skull eggs. These hyper-carnivorous Skullcrawlers begin life as simple eggs, which measure around 4 to 6 feet in size. These eggs have a translucent shell that shows the developing creature inside of it, which cements their place in the evolutionary line. These eggs are much like amphibian or fish eggs, rather than reptilian eggs which have a hard opaque shell. These eggs are said to be laid in enormous numbers, as evidenced by the transport shuttles filled with them in Godzilla vs. Kong. This strategy ensures a plentiful start for the species whose survival hinges on sheer numbers in the beginning, and since their nature is brutal right from the start, massive numbers are needed to ensure that a small fraction do survive into adulthood. There is also the cannibalistic tendency of the Skullcrawlers that are born, and other carnivores would gladly also consume their eggs. Therefore, the fact that they are laid in huge quantities is a really good survival strategy, one that is seen in many animals even in the present day. Stage 2, Skull Spawns. Once hatched, the tiny skull spawns emerge, and the name skull spawn actually correlates with these Skullcrawler babies, and none of the gigantic specimens seen in the crossover MonsterVerse and DC Comics. These skull spawns are roughly the size of a dog, and even at this early stage, they sport an elongated, reptilian-like skull that hints at their fearsome carnivorous future. Despite their less intimidating appearance and size compared to fully grown adults, these hatchlings are still extremely agile and dangerous. They are right from the get-go driven by a constant need to feed. These skull spawns must hunt immediately, and their ferocity is such that a small group of them can strip a human of flesh in under a minute. Their desperate hunger often leads to cannibalistic behavior, where these young would kill and eat each other when there is no prey item around. So only the strongest and most aggressive individuals would survive, which further emphasizes as to why the eggs are laid in huge numbers. But these mini-killers would not stay the same forever, and as they consume and kill, they gradually grow in size and change in form. Stage 3, the Juvenile Skullcrawlers. As they grow, they enter the juvenile phase, where notable changes in their appearance and behavior become evident. Their heads shrink and adopt a more sharper and sloped shape, and their skin takes on a more pronounced brownish tone. These young hypervores are not only pack hunters but also display surprising intelligence and also a great amount of aggression. Their heightened metabolism leaves them in a constant pursuit of prey, sometimes even leading to cannibalism amongst themselves, and a complete lack of instincts to survive. Despite their relatively smaller size, juveniles have been known to fearlessly take on larger opponents, even if the chances of death for themselves are higher than the odds of getting a meal. We can see this when a couple of them attacked Kong despite the great ape being way larger and way more powerful, and we can see that they never actually backed down and fought for food till the very end. The fact is further supported by Ren Serizawa, who remarked that even in the face of death, skullcrawlers still see a potential meal. Stage 4. The adult skullcrawlers. So only a few would ever grow to this stage of adulthood, which is actually a trend that is seen in most animals everywhere in the world. In adulthood, these skullcrawlers evolve into massive, formidable predators, nearly matching Kong in size, and by this I mean a juvenile Kong of 2017. Anyway, as they mature, their heads become larger and more defined, often featuring an angled structure, while their tails develop sharp barbs that serve as effective weapons for both defense and hunting. Then there are the distinct bone-like spikes that emerge from their elbows, and some even have a mane of serrated spikes running down their spines, with jaws lined with 2 rows of sharp teeth, and hands that are equipped with 4 clawed digits. The maturity of these creatures shows that they were built for killing larger superspecies and even titans. Their inner mouths develop thorny, tooth-like structures, and they wield long prehensile, triple-forked tongues to capture and secure prey with deadly precision. Examples of these adults are the Skull Devil, which was the main antagonist of Kong Skull Island, and also another one that was seen in the Skull Island animated series. And then there is Stage 5, the Titan Skullcrawlers. Then there are these rare specimens that pushes their limits of size and terror. These Titan Skullcrawlers represent the apex stage of their evolutionary journey. A notable example, which was named only as number 10 in Godzilla vs. Kong, features a striking red patch along its back and a sickly yellow tint to its skull, which distinguishes it from other specimens of its species. This Titan Skullcrawler was significantly larger than typical adults, with number 10 being around 400 feet long and also 200 feet tall, meaning that it was twice as long as the Skull Devil of 2017, which was only around 195 feet in length. Then there's also the colossal female seen in the game Godzilla Kong Titan Chasers, which was seen to be even rivaling Godzilla in scale. So the thing about skullcrawlers is that they will continuously keep growing if they have access to food, and with a constant state of hunger, only the Hollow Earth might have the necessary prey items to suffice them. And since they are subterranean, there is no telling how big the biggest one might be. But if we consider soft cannon as a part of this topic, we do have one unique specimen. And this is the revived mutated Skull Devil. This was seen in the crossover DC and MonsterVerse comics. It is a one-of-a-kind aberration that stands apart from the standard life cycle. This mutant not only exhibits raw physical power, but also a disturbing level of intelligence and sadism. Resurrected and mutated by the League of Assassins, using the remains of the dead Skull Devil thrown into a huge Lazarus pit, the singular specimen leads a pack of large skull crawlers, marking it as perhaps the most cunning and dangerous variant of its kind. Unlike its brethren, this creature has been observed using its massive tail to even swat away even Godzilla and Kong. It also grew extra bony spikes and plates all over its body with deadly barbs on its tail, and a size that might even be bigger than Titanus Shimu, which would have made it the biggest titan ever aside from the Super Titan skeletons of GXK. But it is from the comics, so it doesn't really count. And so with that, we come to the end of this video on the different life stages in the life cycle of a skullcrawler, plus the mutant aberration from the crossover comics. Do hit that like button for support, and also subscribe if you haven't already. Till the next time, take care fam.